How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good evening, Julian. How's life in Paris?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and I've done it again. You know,
What have you done? What have you done?
I had to bring a guest because I think we could just benefit from more insights.
Oh, that's a good thing. Don't
That's a
apologize
good
for it.
thing.
Who'd you bring?
Well, this time I wanted to, we always say we're international, so I wanted to bring a
Mm-hmm.
truly international CX person, right? So
Ooh,
the
so a
the, the
man of
person
mystery?
well, someone who was born in the US, spent a lot of time in Singapore, now lives in Germany and has been
Mm.
doing CX from pretty much all over the world. That's 20 years veteran teaching customer experience and contact center, because we tend to believe that the same things. Those are two pretty much different things.
Mm-hmm.
And he has so much experience, and in many ways, he reminds me of you. So I thought, let's invite him. Daniel, hi. How are you doing,
Hi,
Daniel?
Julien. Hi, Max. I feel very
Hey,
honored to be here.
So
well,
let me
we're
introduce you properly. Daniel is the co-founder of OmniTouch International. We know each other for a very long time, and he has a story to tell. So I thought, let's
mm-hmm.
invite him and get that story through.
All right.
Good?
Well,
Well,
are you ready
thanks.
for the couch, Daniel?
I'm ready because actually I keep thinking of this couch. I'm really bringing something I hope you can help me process a little bit. So here's my story, but it's important to indicate this is pre-pandemic, obviously. So where I live in Germany is really a very heavy tourist area normally. It's along the
Mm.
Rhine River. It's a wine growing region. So typically many tourists come here to take cruises, see the sights, visit the wineries and so forth. And there are a lot of castles here, many, many castles, maybe about 80 castles just in the general area. And many of them have been turned into hotels. So
Mm.
13 years ago, we got married here, and my mother-in-law gave us a package at one of the castles to stay for our honeymoon, which was really nice. So 13 years
That
ago,
is.
by the way, Julian, it's a Relais and Chateau, so it's part of a very elite brand, beautifully done. I'll never
It
forget
is.
that time. It was spectacular. And again, that was 13 years ago. Now, the irony is where I live now in Germany, that castle's just 1 kilometer in front of me. So I literally see it every day. I mean, I go by every day. Now, currently during the pandemic, it's closed, obviously, but normally it's quite busy. So what I thought, it was in 2019, is why not recreate that 13 years later? Why not have a
Ah.
surprise anniversary? Instead of buying a typical anniversary gift, buy a night back at the castle and really
Oh, that's
wow.
nice. I like it.
I thought, yeah, why not? And so I went on their website. They had some packages. I found a package I liked. Now, I'm not going to tell you what the price was, but it's breathtaking. Someone told me we could have bought a small used car. So to put this in context, I could be driving some old beat up Toyota for whatever this was, whatever. But the point is, it was going to be a real surprise, and I felt really, I don't know, empowered thinking of it. So I wrote to the front desk, and she was really nice. And I explained to her that 13 years ago, we spent our honeymoon here. I want this to be something special. And she can see our address, so she knows we're literally just 1 kilometer away. It's exactly the same postal code, even has the same street name. And I told her, we're looking forward to it. It's a surprise. Oh, and by the way, we don't drink. We don't drink alcohol. So in the package, they had this, you come in and you have a bottle of champagne in the room. So I basically said, can you switch that to some local apple cider or something, which she did. So I was super excited, super ready. I gave the gift. Wow. We packed our suitcases and literally walked from the house to the hotel. Kind of funny walking down the neighborhood, but it's really that close. And I guess this is where I think it has a lot to do with my expectations, where I expected so much. I expected so much from 13 years ago, and I expected a lot from having interacted with the front desk agent, and I really wanted to kind of create this new memory. And I'll start off by saying that it was a bit like that Chinese death by 1,000 cuts. Now, you guys can analyze the way you want to. It's not that anything big went wrong. It's just that many small things went wrong that really surprised me. So I'll tell you the first thing. We managed to get the same room, believe it or not. No, it looked exactly the same. They hadn't changed anything.
Yeah,
But
awesome.
they were doing some kind of construction, and there was this big circular electrical wires coming out. Now, my point on that is it ruined the Instagram photo. Because, I mean, the whole point is you got to have pictures on Instagram to prove you actually stayed there. So can you imagine we had to move a chair to block these wires? And it was a bit like, again, the price sets an expectation in my head. The fact we're repeat visitors, admittedly 13 years later, but still repeat visitors, right? Then the other thing that surprised me is throughout the stay, there was a couple meals included and so on. Nothing about the alcohol carried through. So when we went into the restaurant, then immediately your set comes with alcohol, but we don't drink alcohol. And that turned into a small fuss. And then it was like, oh, and then switch. And then the dish that was with the dinner was sauerbraten, which is quite a lovely German dish, but it had been roasted in red wine sauce, which, forget the alcohol part, it's just the taste. So when we said, oh, we actually don't drink and this red wine sauce doesn't taste very good, and they actually said to us, this is how we make it here. This is how we make the sauerbraten here. That's actually what the waiter or waitress said. So again, environment is lovely. You can't change the way the castle looks, but the way the castle felt wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't exactly the same feeling. And so the alcohol thing struck me. The wires coming out of the wall struck me. The sauerbraten struck me. And then I thought, okay, never mind. At checkout, and this may be me being American a little bit, Max, I don't know. I kind of expected that, and that still pops out now and then, I expected her to say something like, have a nice walk back home. I can see you literally live, I know where you live, because she must be local working in this particular. Not at all. She said, have a very safe drive home, and we look forward to seeing you again. And I thought, I don't know. Guys, I'm struggling, and I'm going to turn it over to you to help me here, because I wanted them to do an amazing job. I wanted this to be amazing. Price was not the issue here. It was only one night. I'm not talking about a week on a yacht somewhere. We're talking about one night. And yet this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then remember, I'm not alone. I'm trying to share this experience with another person and kind of pretend I'm 13 years younger than I really am. So dear and lovely couch people, can you help me figure out what went wrong here? Am I overreacting? Am I underreacting? I don't know.
The first thing I'm going to tell you, Daniel, is you and I have something in common. We've lived in Asia for a long time, and there is a syndrome. I can't remember the name, but there is a syndrome for Japanese people coming to Paris. They have this beautiful picture in their mind of everything being, it's like Disneyland when you come to Paris. And then they arrive and they meet Parisians. And their reality is painful. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what happened here, because you beautify that memory in your mind. Now, what's interesting is I have a very similar story to yours, because it was last year, actually. I met my wife 13, 14 years ago. And the first thing we did after dating was to go in Brittany, the west of France, for holidays. And I brought her to the exact same place 13 years later. I took my photo albums and we went to every seaside, to take the exact same picture. And the result was terrible, because I'm 15 kilos heavier than 13 years ago. So nothing to do with customer experience. That's personal experience that was terrible from that front. But I understand the pain you went through. And while part of it is probably on you, because you had very high expectation, because, your memories are always much better than reality when it comes to a good moment. I think there are many things, and I'll let Max start here, but I think there are many things that could have been done better, especially when it's that expensive, because you deserve probably the best when you book in this kind of environment. Max, what do you think?
You hit the keyword, expectation. I find myself sometimes avoiding a really expensive package like that for just exactly what happened to you. If I pay a reasonable amount and something isn't perfect, it's like, okay, that's not perfect. I have my first father-in-law was the perfect person to buy the most expensive thing in the world, because if anything wasn't exactly perfect, he just started reaming people immediately. He was just, I spent all of this, and why? And I hated going anywhere with him because he'd start doing that. And I'm just in the corner going, oh no, make him stop, make it. But it's almost the kind of attitude you have to have for something like that. While we're at it, I have a similar story. You may be familiar with the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco, which is where I proposed to my wife. And
Wow.
about 13 years later, I did the same thing. We had a night there, and we got the room by the elevator, and there weren't any other rooms, and it was just wrong and disappointing. But we've had good experiences there since. But that one, it was just so. I've had a similar, and it wasn't, I paid for. I guess that's the problem. Is you're paying for perfection, and you can't get that.
Well, the only place I'm going to disagree with this is you have, apparently, from what you say in your story, you have spent some time talking to the front desk to explain, gives a context, tells a story behind it. Now, they've tried. We cannot say they haven't tried, because they manage, or it's a really good coincidence, but they managed to get you the exact same room, which helps, bringing the memories together. They did switch the alcohol on the first time. Unfortunately, it did not go through, and let's focus on this in a second. But they paid some effort. What is missing here is consistency and attention to details. I don't know if you're familiar with that story. I love the story of the broken window theory. Broken window theory, to make it super short, is if you leave something broken, then something else is going to break, because you give the sign that no one cares if it's broken or not. So something else is going to break, and then the third one, and it gets worse and worse. And because they leave you have this first bad experience, and you can get the second one and the third and the fourth, and all those are just tiny details. But when you book a luxury experience, every detail matters, and that's where things go downhill, I think.
The other thing I'm struck by is who these guys are competing with. Now, they're not competing with people who have castles a kilometer from your house. So there's that. But, if you think about, I've had 2 or 3 conversations about the Ritz-Carlton recently, which I've never stayed in one, but I can talk about them. And, there was the story about the housekeeper who found a laptop in the guy's room and literally flew to Hawaii to get it to him, and then turned around and got on the next flight back. And the another guy who, they know his pillow, they know every little detail, and they do it. So there are companies in the hotel industry that nail that expectation, that are all about, and it's and that is just a deep-seated, from one end to the other, corporate commitment. You would never have a waiter who would say, oh no, that's just how we do it here. That guy would be fired.
And that's probably the only thing that I would seriously blame here, because all the rest is unfortunate. Could have been done better, but they didn't mean anything wrong. They didn't mean anything bad here, except for the waiter. The waiter telling you that's the way it's done here. Yeah, I'm not sure when you pay. I mean, if you go to the local canteen, well, you get the local canteen. But if you go to a luxury restaurant, considering the price you pay for the service. Let's be frank, you don't pay for the raw material, right? Because it doesn't cost any more than in any other restaurant. You pay for the service. You pay for the atmosphere. If they kill both the service and the atmosphere, then there is something wrong, and you should not be paying that price. So that's the only one where I would be more like your like, who did you say that was who made you ashamed when you go to a store with him, Max, because he would blame on the
my first father. Yeah,
right. That would be. Sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
No, Julie, go ahead. No. It's you made me think of something.
No, please. What did it make you?
I was just going to say, and also Max too. So what I'm hearing you saying, I'm paraphrasing or twisting the words a little bit, is the opposite of the wow factor is not the absence of a wow factor. The absence of a wow factor was this kind of tiny little thing creates an a little itch. Another tiny little thing creates another itch. And next thing you know, 6 inches later, there's a resentment there. There's a frustration there. It was something that built up slowly and tinily over time. And I know at times we also talk about this emotional connection. I think the physical location is breathtaking. I think the emotional connection really wasn't there. It's probably true that my expectations were really high from the past. My expectation was also high from the price. But I will say to some degree that initial communication with the front desk person also set my expectation because her style of communication was so, how do I say, personal. It felt really personal. So I got more eager about it. Maybe that's why, again, my expectation was so high. And I am not a person that does this. So Max, no, definitely not. I'm the one that finds the 70-euro hotel close to the train station and stays for a few nights and walks everywhere, kind of. I don't do these luxury things. So that's what kind of made it a little bit unusual as well. And that's probably why I brought the story too.
But you know, there is very good news for this castle. The good news is that that's an easy fix, actually, because they got the environment, they got the right food, even though that specific dish was not to your taste, and the service wasn't there. But apparently, the restaurant must be good from what you're saying. They got everything right, and they even have the front desk person to go the extra mile and be very lovely and friendly and personal and everything. What they miss is two things, I would say. First is VOC, because and I don't know whether they had a survey with you afterwards, but if they had, I'm really hoping they took it into consideration, because we're not talking about a hotel with 5,000 customers a year. We are talking about a niche luxury hotel. They probably have very few customers, so they need to spend extra time and to show that they care. So voice of customer is even more important, or at least very different from a mass market kind of product. The second thing they need is accountability. There should be one person within the hotel. That could be the hotel manager, but it could be someone else who kind of manage the entire journey and make sure that when the information comes through the front desk, it goes to everyone, including the cleaning lady, who's going to make sure that, you know, everything is perfect. There should be some kind of journey manager within the hotel, and especially that the journey is not that long for this kind of service. It's a fairly short one, and I think that's what's missing. But the good news for them and for every other hotel chain listening to that is it's a fairly easy fix if you put the right people and the right accountability into place.
Yeah, and Max made me think of something, because if you're looking at these Ritz-Carlton stories, somebody somewhere along the way would have said, by the way, it's so awesome to have you back after 13 years.
Right.
Somebody anywhere could have said that. Now, I truly wasn't doing this to mystery shop. I truly wasn't doing this to be a CX person. Absolutely not. I wanted to relive a brilliant memory. That's all. But I have to admit, by the time I left, I was surprised that not a single person had said how terrific that you came back after, especially because you're local. By the way, I'm assuming that a lot of their guests must be local, meaning coming from a big city like Frankfurt is about an hour away. So I imagine Frankfurt people would come. Or it's not purely international. It's probably a lot of domestic tourism when they come to the wineries and stay in the hotel and so on and so on. So yeah, I kind of miss that, just that light touch that you read about in these stories about Ritz-Carlton and of these other kind of brands that we seem to emulate a lot, don't we, Max? I mean, when you hear Fairmont and St. Francis and Shangri-La, you know, for Hong Kong, and so you get that image in your mind of what the experience is going to be. So
yeah, that's so true. And I guess I'll paint a negative moment on this. Julian's making the point, you know, the fixes aren't big. What's required, I have no way of knowing if they're well set up for or not, is the will. And if I've got the coolest castle, I may not care, because you know what? Most people are just going to say, yeah, there are wires in the room, and oh, you know, okay, yes, sir, I'll eat it. So I mean, I hope Julian's right, that there is someone there to say this is an easy set of fixes. it's possible there isn't, in which case it's then impossible, obviously.
Well, I think one question remains here. Daniel, are you feeling any better about it? Telling
No,
us a
and I'm
story.
telling you a story from December 2019, and what is it now? Or is it 2019? I've lost track of time. Yeah, something about this lockdown puts us in this weird time warp. But this is this many months ago, and when you contacted me, Julien and Max, about being on your program, it was the first thing that came to mind. So it's still top of mind. And I do have to say, if people were to ask me the classic ROI or loyalty or NPS question, no, I won't go back. We'll go back to try the restaurant, but I won't stay there again. For that much money, there's many other great places or things I could do. And I wouldn't recommend it either, because I would, if I felt let down, why would I let my friend or my mom or whoever feel let down? So it's that classic loyalty thing. So, but Max, I agree with you. I'm not sure about the will. I'm not going to overanalyze the business case, but I think it's a single proprietor owned, and then they somehow get approved to join this collective. Relais and Chateau is nothing but a collective that says you met their standards and you're part of this. What is it, Julien? Like a joint marketing kind of collection program, but it's run independently. So I think the will comes from the people that own this place,
right?
And set the direction for it. So,
well, I'm at least glad that you managed to get this one off your chest.
Yes, thank you.
I'm hoping you're going to sleep better. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Daniel. I'm sure it's going to be valuable for many other people. Hopefully, for many other companies and hotel chains as well. Thank you so much, as usual, Max, for all your insights and your time. And well, I'll see you guys very soon again. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Julien.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon.
Ciao.